Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of Exploring History, where today we're going to explore an ancient city of Mesopotamia that few people know about. I'm talking specifically about the ancient city of Mari. Its location is interesting because it's not very close to the great cities of Sumer or Akkad. Nevertheless, Mari's impact on these areas is quite significant. It really played an important role in the history of the Near East up until its, well, you could say, undeserved destruction by Hammurabi of Babylon in 1761 BCE. Yes, this is the same Hammurabi who's famous for his law code. I bet many of you didn't know that he sacked and burned cities too. Mari's early history is a bit of a mystery, but archaeologists believe that the city has been occupied at least since the 3rd millennium BCE. Excavations, mostly by French archaeologists that started in the 1930s and continued into the 1970s, have revealed several layers to the city, spanning from the early dynastic period through the Akkadian era into the Neo-Sumerian period, and finally under various kings of Amorite descent. It was coveted by all of these peoples due to its prime location in between Mesopotamia proper and the eastern Mediterranean world. This put Mari at the nexus of several profitable trade routes. Archaeologists have confirmed that the city was indeed a very wealthy one. Findings from the 3rd phase of the early dynastic period reveal the remains of private houses, a central square surrounded by what appears to have been a large market, and temples dedicated to various deities, including the goddess Ishtar. The city seems to have prospered for centuries until sometime around 2300 BCE, during the Akkadian period, where there seems to have been some destruction caused by massive violence. It's not known exactly why this happened, but if you read the texts and proclamations of various Akkadian kings, especially those after Sargon the Great, they're constantly talking about how they put down rebellions in various cities with great force. Perhaps Mari too was one of these. The city though seems to have revived itself somewhat towards the end of the Akkadian period, because there's evidence, or actually records, that show that it was controlled by a military governor loyal to the Akkadian regime. However, it seems that as the central authority of Akkad eroded, the governor became, or at least felt, that he was independent enough to form his own dynasty. This became known as the Shakanaku dynasty, and its members presided over the city until the Neo-Sumerian 3rd dynasty of Ur. The Neo-Sumerian period seems to have started a new era of prosperity for the city, with renovations and redevelopment of all of the old commercial centers of the city, along with construction of new, larger temples and palaces. Many of these structures contained multiple rooms grouped around open courts, one of the most well-known being the Court of Palms. This was reportedly a large courtyard lined with palm trees and connected to what is believed to have been a throne room. The remains of several other palaces have also been found, illustrating the luxury that at least some of Mari's residents lived in. Again, this was probably due to Mari's great location as a trade hub, but perhaps also to the relative peace and stability that was generally present during the first half of Neo-Sumerian rule. The building spree generally seems to have continued, with consistent renovations and expansions of existing structures taking place. It's not known when or even how the Shakanaku dynasty came to an end, as knowledge of the transition period between it and the next dynasty is quite hazy. What is known is that during this time, roughly 1700 to 1800 BCE, Mesopotamia and really much of the Near East were experiencing an influx of Amorite nomads. Believed to have been originally from the lands of Canaan, Palestine, and the Levant, these Amorite tribes are believed to have migrated east for the greener pastures to be found along the great river systems of Mesopotamia. Hence, they ended up in places like Mari, along the western bank of the Euphrates River. Mixing in with the local populations, sometimes peacefully, other times violently, many Amorites took over the great cities of Mesopotamia and the ancient Near East, and founded their own dynasties. Some of the more famous of these Amorite dynasties were of Babylon, Larsa, Yamhad, Ekalatum, and of course, Mari. In fact, we can say that Mari's golden age came during the rule of its dynasty of Amorite kings. This started with the dynasty's founder, Zimri-Lim, who reigned from 1810 to 1794 BCE. Yadun-Lim seems to have been quite powerful during his day, and ruled over a sizable realm that included other wealthy cities such as nearby Turka and Tutal. To help further beautify his capital, he led an expedition to Lebanon in order to get their world-famous timber for his palaces. While on his way, he stopped by Aleppo, capital of another powerful Amorite kingdom, Yamhad. Its king, Sumuepa, was curious about the lands of Mesopotamia to Mari's east, and he signed a pact of friendship with Yadun-Lim. However, the alliance was terminated when Yadun-Lim sent troops to support rebellious vassal kings of Sumuepa. Now, it's possible that for this, Yadun-Lim may have indirectly paid with his life, as in 1794 BCE, he was assassinated by one of his servants. This could have been at the instigation of Sumuepa, with the logistics being overseen by Yadun-Lim's son, Sumu-Yaman. I point this out because Sumu-Yaman not only became king after his father's death, but he also attempted to improve relations with Yamhad, which is strange if the latter is presumed to be the prime suspect in your father's murder. Honestly though, Sumuepa didn't have much time to contemplate his father's death or forge new relations with Yamhad because he himself was assassinated just over a year later in the year 1793 BCE. Now, this year of chaos with these two assassinations made the wealthy city of Mari a prime acquisition target for the expansionist Amorite king of Upper Mesopotamia, Shamshi-Adad I. Shamshi-Adad called himself the king of Ekalatum. However, he's considered by many, including the Assyrians themselves, to be the first great king of Assyria, something which I discuss in other programs on this channel, so I'm not going to spend too much time discussing it here. Anyway, Shamshi-Adad conquered Mari and installed his son, Yesma-Adu, as the governor or viceroy of the city and the surrounding areas. For all practical purposes, Yesma-Adu was a weak and perhaps lazy king. These are not my thoughts, but those of his father, Shamshi-Adad. There are actually letters which have been discovered that illustrate Shamshi-Adad's frustration and displeasure with his son's handling of affairs in Mari. Maybe the luxurious life there, away from battle with his father, had made him soft. Shamshi-Adad may have been right about his son. Upon his death in 1775, Yesma-Adu was left to fend for himself and soon after that lost his throne. The man who replaced him was a certain Zimri-Lim, who claimed to be the son of Yadun-Lim. Scholars though debate this, and many of them believe that actually he could have been Yadun-Lim's nephew or perhaps even his grandson. Zimri-Lim actually has a pretty interesting story. When Yesma-Adu was appointed as viceroy of Mari, Zimri-Lim fled the city, and it's likely that he sought refuge in Yamhad, perhaps living in its capital city of Aleppo. By this time, there was a new king of Yamhad, Sumu-Yaman's son, Yarim-Lim. Now you would think that like his father, Yarim-Lim wouldn't have much love for Mari's former first family, but it turns out that his father was killed in battle fighting against Shamshi-Adad. Thus, Yarim-Lim and Zimri-Lim shared a special bond. Not only did they have similar sounding suffixes to their names, but they also both hated Shamshi-Adad. Their relationship became even closer when Zimri-Lim married the sister of Yarim-Lim. Being family, Yarim-Lim entrusted Zimri-Lim with an army to take back his home, Mari. In an ironic reverse of events, in 1775 BCE, it was Zimri-Lim who marched into Mari, with Yesma-Adu being the one to flee. It's also under Zimri-Lim that Mari really became one of the wealthiest and possibly the most beautiful cities in the world. The royal Palace of Zimri-Lim was considered to be one of the great wonders of that world. In fact, there are a few stories of kings who specifically went to Mari to see Zimri-Lim's great palace and afterwards formed alliances with him because they felt that one who held such a palace must truly be favored by the gods. With the powerful Yarim-Lim protecting him on his western side and Hammurabi of Babylon, his ally to the east, not to mention the great wealth that Mari was obtaining from being in the midst of profitable trade routes, it seemed that there was little that could hinder or harm Zimri-Lim's reign as king. In a recent video on Hammurabi, which I'll link to in the video description, Zimri-Lim was featured a lot because he was an ally of Hammurabi in their first great war against Eshnunna, and also later on against the Elamites, not to mention against Larsa in 1763 BCE. The two seem to have worked well together. However, once Hammurabi declared himself to be the king of Sumer and Akkad, a title that the great kings of the Akkadian and the Neo-Sumerian empires used, it probably became clear to Zimri-Lim that his ally could very soon turn into his adversary. Thus in 1762 BCE, when Hammurabi went on to mop up what remained of Eshnunna, Zimri-Lim's troops were noticeably absent. Now, as far as we know, Zimri-Lim didn't support any of Hammurabi's enemies, but he also didn't help Hammurabi in any way. Perhaps Hammurabi thought of Zimri-Lim as a vassal whose duty it was to send aid in times of war. Obviously, Zimri-Lim didn't see it that way. Now, it's said that Hammurabi was angry with Zimri-Lim for not helping him out, but maybe this was just a cover or an excuse for his real intentions. Regardless, in 1761 BCE, Hammurabi sacked and looted Mari. Now, what happened to Mari's population is not known, though Hammurabi claims that he treated them well. This, though, is a relative term. To be honest, what does it even mean? Instead of slaughtering them, did he just relocate them to a land far away from Mari? Did he sell them into slavery? We don't really know. Zimri-Lim also seems to have not been in Mari at the time and was probably campaigning with allies near Aleppo. Then, in an act which, at least to me, seems unexplainable, Hammurabi's men, after taking anything that they could find of value, burned the beautiful city of Mari to the ground. As I said, to me it doesn't make sense. Why would you want to destroy such a beautiful, wealthy, and strategically economic city such as Mari? I guess though when you think about it, that's maybe why he did destroy it. After all, Babylon was his capital, and Mari no doubt must have rivaled it in its splendor. He may have also felt that he would not have been able to hold on to the city, and that it would only be a matter of time before Zimri-Lim would return with an army and also help from Yamhad. After all, he'd done this in the past when he retook the city from Shamshi-Adad. Thus, being the shrewd king that he was, Hammurabi must have concluded that it was better to eliminate Mari as a potential rival by letting the city burn into oblivion than to one day have to fight for it again. Destroying it would mean that Zimri-Lim would have nothing to return to or to reclaim. In the end, we also don't know what happened to Zimri-Lim. It's possible that he ended his days in Aleppo, but again, we don't really have evidence to back this up. At this point, it's just speculation. One thing that was left behind in Mari is a collection of over 22,000 cuneiform tablets, most of them coming from state and private archives. Many of these were found in and around Zimri-Lim's palace and tell of the last 25 years of the city's existence. They include letters, administrative documents, legal and religious texts, all of which provide invaluable information about what daily life in Mari was like, especially during its glory years. There are also several documents that date back to Akkadian and Neo-Sumerian times. Mari did come back to life a few decades after its destruction, but it was only a shadow of its former self. It's listed among the 38 cities and districts that the Assyrian king, Tukulti-Ninurta I, conquered during his reign between 1244 to 1208 BCE. It also appears again as late as the 9th century BCE in the annals of Adad-Nirari III. This doesn't mean that it was a great city at that time, only that something of it existed. It could also be that the land of the mid-Euphrates was simply called the Land of Mari due to that being the historical name of the area. After the 800s BCE though, the city mostly disappears from written records, though there is some evidence that there may have been people living there as late as the Hellenistic period. Basically, that's the time during or after Alexander of Macedonia and his successors ruled over the Near East. And that, my friends, is a brief history of the city of Mari. Thanks so much for stopping by the channel, I really appreciate it. There's more to come on ancient Mesopotamia and other eras of history, so please hit that subscribe button and hope to see you next time. Take care.